Welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Listen in as we discuss all things business, growth and marketing with business owners, thought leaders and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, founder of Roundhouse, the creative agency, Saul Edmonds.
Oh, hey everyone. Welcome to the Grow Business podcast. Today I'm speaking with Marina from the Charisma Academy. Marina, how are you?
Hi, Saul. I'm very well, thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you on. It's going to be a particularly first time, I think probably just about ever I've spoken to someone specifically about these topics. So it's very, very interesting. And I think, as we get further into the conversation, we'll explore this a bit, but, something that really jumped out to me, because we're talking about like personal charisma and etiquette and a range of other things, is who this is for too. But I'll let you first, for people who don't know you, who've never heard about what you do. Can you give everyone just a bit of an overview about you, what you get up to, and what this is all about?
Thank you. I am the founder of the Charisma Academy. It's a small, very small academy school that teaches people how to be polished, how to be charismatic in their personal and in their professional life. Today we will be talking about charisma in business. So I will relate my conversation mostly about professional presence and business etiquette. Business etiquette, if I have to tell you how does the workshop of business etiquette look like, it is mostly about how to create a powerful first impression, how to create powerful presence, professional body language, how to understand business protocols and business cultural differences, how to negotiate, how to introduce yourself and how to introduce others, how to be a charismatic professional that people want to work with. They want to call and invite for meetings, invite to social events, and just simply be friends with that person. Because everything that you learn in business can perfectly reflect and relate to your personal life later. And the sooner you start learning this type of skills, the better it is, because then it becomes your habit and it just makes your professional life easier.
Yeah, actually, so just from that then too, I think for people listening, because I guess this is a question that I sort of, had my own answer to, but I knew would be in the minds of like a lot of people. And I figured it would be helpful from your point of view, from you, for people listening, to give, I guess, a sort of definition of etiquette and then personal charisma, because people have, this is a guess, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I would imagine for a lot of people going etiquette, they're going to make associations with that, with, a range of different things like fine dining, dressing up nicely, going to a fancy dinner, meeting wealthy people at a party, all sorts of things that are true, but aren't necessarily the sort of at the heart of it. So if you could just define, one at a time, we start off with etiquette. What does that, even maybe with examples for, say, like the average person, what does that actually mean?
Yes, it's a great question, because I do meet often people who say that, etiquette, that belongs to royals, or, etiquette, it's just for wealthy people. But the reality is completely different. And I'm so happy for this question, and I'm happy that we can start with this question, because if we take a look at the official Cambridge vocabulary, etiquette is the meaning of, it's a set of rules that helps us conduct social and business situations in a proper manner. But obviously, beyond the traditional official meaning, there is there is a practical part of it. Etiquette is something that we use in our everyday life. It is respect, it is kindness, it is politeness, it is civility. And mostly for me, etiquette above everything, above all the strict rules and everything else, is the kindness and the politeness that we relate to other people. For example, if we are, let's say, if we meet someone, let's imagine a situation where we are at the dinner table, at a business dinner, and we have people of different ranks and different ages. And obviously understanding if we have a person who is of a higher rank and serves in the company for more than 20 years, how would you refer to this person? How would you actually express your respect, your politeness, and how would you follow that protocol? Many people just feel so uncomfortable and so self-conscious that they sit and they wouldn't say one word because they simply do not know how to behave and how to relate to that person. So let's say in this particular situation, etiquette will help you having a wonderful, free, kind, absolutely interesting, involved conversation during this evening, and focus on the outcome of this conversation and on enjoying it rather than being self-conscious and worried. Oh my God, what am I saying, or what am I doing? Is it right?
Or like, is it because when you don't know, like you're saying in that situation, or I guess in many situations where you're not aware of if there are any protocols, if there's correct or incorrect ways to say things,
exactly.
If it's more formal, how you should be dressed, you don't know the group of people, and all those unknowns, I guess maybe, like, what are your thoughts on the fact that even the idea of those unknowns can be really easily allayed by having protocols in place, like by actually having rules in place, so you don't have to worry about.
Correct.
Like in sort of knowing what you should or shouldn't be doing because it's outlined for you. I mean, that's how I see it, because there's often the whole thing of like, well, I don't want to have any rules imposed upon me. Like, what's that about? I want to be free, man. I mean, that's kind of, that's a little bit of a cliche, but I think for a lot of people that's true. It's like, why should I do that? But
yes, but what we don't consider is that knowledge and learnings, that's what gives you freedom. If you know things, you can travel anywhere and feel free person and not feel lost in a place, because in this circumstances, for example, in travel, we would talk about cross-cultural etiquette. Let's say you would be traveling to Middle East. So before especially to countries like Middle East or Asia, you must understand where are you traveling and where are you going. Understand the cultural difference, their local etiquette, at least the basics of it. No, we're not talking about learning the depth of the cultural, and the kings and all the difficult things that people that people don't find interesting anymore nowadays. But at least knowing the general rules, so you can just feel comfortable and not get in trouble, because what's normal for you might not be so normal for a Middle Eastern or Asian person.
Yeah,
so all these things are to be considered.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of, like, even it's interesting. I've often reflected back on this particular example with just a simple conversation that I had, that I just generally assumed there would be no things relating to like intercultural sort of issues or anything, when I was having a chat some years ago with someone in the States. And I mean, I'd always generally found, say, with Australians speaking with Canadians, there's like a similar understanding of the type of humor. There's like a similar kind of, I'm not sure exactly how to put my finger on it, but with some people in the States, in particular areas. And I was having a chat with this person, and I said, what was it? It was no worries. You say in Australia, that seems to be a very Australian thing. And you go, sure, no worries. And this person was sort of really taken aback by the fact that I said no worries. And she was like, so what are you worried about? And what's your concern? And I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't I don't mean I have a concern. Yeah. And I had to go through this big long rigmarole and sort of explaining it, but I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like it was all fine. She was like, oh, that's kind of weird, and she was like, really thought it was like really odd. And I was like, okay, well, we need to move on now. But it was, but it was a real wake up call that like, even in sort of like these English speaking languages and the very different cultural norms and terms that you just, that I'm used to throwing in normally in any conversation, like heaps of Australians do, all of a sudden was like, I have no idea what that means. And I'll find the next nearest thing that I know is that you're concerned. So I'm not really concerned. Yes. Yeah. And in fact, I'm the opposite, but yeah. So in you, in say what you, do when you're helping people, is there a particular type of person in business that, you work with more than other people, or certain industries more than other industries, or is it quite broad?
It is quite broad, but no, there is actually there is a more. My services are requested more to companies that are related to services that work with customers, and it is quite logical. We meet people, we face people, communicate with each other, and we need to understand how that appropriate, effective and good communication can be adapted and can have a good outcome. We all kind of are searching for the good ways of communication. So yes, all the companies who are related to customer care, financial services, let's say bankers, even accountant companies, boutiques, retail managers. Then recently I worked with someone from in banking, in private banking, who are meeting with clients on everyday basis. So yes, all of the companies who are customer based.
Yeah. Is there, so we'll just take a step back to with what we were saying before about definitions about things to, we'll go back now to, personal charisma. So we were talking just before we jumped on the podcast, we were talking and we're going to be talking about this because this is kind of interesting. Yeah. So this is probably a good, segue to get into that about, preconceptions about what, that charismatic people, in inverted commas, and, charisma, and the idea that it's like a naturally born with sort of thing, or that it's a learnt skill, or somewhere in between.
Charisma. Yes. we say, but one of those, sometimes you are in the room, let's say, and you have 50 people, right? And, one of those people, or one or two or three, I say, oh my God, this is such an interesting, shiny, radiant person. And you look at that person and you say, wow, like she or he's really charismatic. You really feel like you want to get to know that person, that you want to talk to this person. Yeah. So this is charisma. And now you see it is questionable, and it is a very interesting question whether it is whether it's something that we were born with, or it's something that you can learn. Many people say no, it is absolutely, you need to be born with it, and that's a given by nature. But and I have to admit that I believed so before I started working on in my coaching business. And I started to get educated about human behavior and human skills and everything. And then I realized that there is a part that you learn that you have, and let's say an outgoing, maybe a little bit character, like a positive approach to life. But the most of it, 80% of the charisma can be learned. And it can be learned by so many skills, but gaining skills by gaining positive approach to life, by understanding how to be that radiant, shining, well-dressed, well-mannered, positive person in the room. So I firmly believe that charisma is something that you can learn.
So how closely, so here's, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, interesting. How closely aligned do you feel is like personal charisma and etiquette? Like, are they like in their relationship to each other? Because when we're talking about, because I'm thinking, okay, well, if you can learn it like any skill, like you practice it and you repeat it, and you get better at it, and you see responses from people, or maybe it's not so scientific, you just get better at it. That etiquette, by its kind of nature, because it's a set of sort of rules or instructions or things that you do that, like you were saying before, then at one point it becomes natural. Sort of almost, if there's a close relationship between personal charisma or at least sort of improving that and etiquette, then it kind of follows that it can be very easily learned, because etiquette is all about, you have to know the rules in the first place in order to perform them. You don't just like naturally know them, or you sort of, I guess to some extent people have an idea of what is appropriate and inappropriate.
Absolutely. Some of the rules are so natural, and they're of a common sense for, as long as you practice social skills. And we are in social environment. We are not just lost in the woods, a person like a wild person who lives in the woods. And as long as you are in a society and you're surrounded by people, there is always that intuitive feeling of common sense when you're within people. And this is already manners. Before the actual etiquette, the actual rules were created historically, we had, so the history of etiquette goes back to the 10th century. And this type of rules were created as social skills, as manners. And they all come, first of all, from respecting adults, respecting family values, respecting human values, helping people, kindness and politeness and things like this. Then on the second place, because people, we're quite, we can be quite wild and creatures, and obviously now we're civilized, but 100 and 200 years ago, people were uncivilized. So they didn't know how to, they didn't know how to eat, or they didn't know how to do basic things that we are doing on our daily basis. So this rules, as our society has been evolving and growing, and we were introducing all sorts of industrial revolutions and introducing different tools to our everyday life, people needed these rules, because you simply could not be, let's say, sitting on the table
to keep order with others.
Correct. Yes, keep orders and stay safe as well. Because by controlling our temper, by controlling our communicational skills, our actions, we actually keep ourselves and our environment safe and respectful.
It's obviously linked very closely. Yeah, actually, I don't think I quite ever thought about it quite like that, but that's a really interesting point, is that the origins of it then too have like a distinct flow-on effect to, like, just different parts of society, like trade, like things that are positive to trading well, working with other people, to have
Absolutely. Correct.
Yeah, as opposed to going, okay, well, I don't really care about any rules, so I'm just going to do whatever. And in any, like, everybody intuitively knows that, if you came into a room and started attacking everyone, you're going to be very, very unpopular. that you could, or that even if you come into a room and you tell really, really rude jokes to everyone, there's going to be a portion of people in the room will go, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny, but kind of inappropriate for this general broad group of people. People are like, yeah, not good etiquette, but then they don't necessarily, I guess, go, that's etiquette. They, or like we were saying earlier, it's that impression of what etiquette is. Because like for me, it's interesting talking to you because when I did for many years martial arts, it was all about etiquette. So I've had in my mind for a long time, with its roots in Asian culture, that there's particular protocols for when you walk into a room, you bow, and you meet a certain person, or you meet anyone then in our club, you bow, and it's a sign of respect and friendship. Like it's a sign of, and then it's also a sign of like when you come into the place, to show respect to the place that you're going to do this, and these nice kind of like ceremonies that I always found just really kind of comforting. And it was, it's kind of comforting because it's like the polar opposite view of somebody who goes, I don't like rules, I'm going to do what I like. It's the polar opposite view, because you have rules, in my mind anyway, or you have these protocols or procedures in order to, one, make the process of everyone communicating smoother and easier. Yes. And you just go, everyone knows you're going to do this. And everyone's like, fine, we're going to do that. Someone comes and disrupts that, and it disrupts the whole whatever is happening in that room. Correct. Whether it's like training, or whether it's like talking to people, right? And so that's that whole, in fact, I used to do it so much that for many years after I stopped training, I would actually, it was really funny, and like I felt kind of embarrassed, is that I would have this instinctive urge when I'd go into a room in like a networking group to bow, like as I would enter the room. And I would, and I still sometimes have that kind of urge, because it was so normal. It was so normalized as this nice thing to sort of show respect. And it was just like, didn't even think about it. Just be like, bow, and then but then I, and that's very normal also in many Asian cultures too.
Absolutely.
Meeting people is not shaking hands necessarily, it's a bow. It's a different thing, and that's normal. But over here,
cultural differences. Here we're coming to the cultural differences. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a good segue. So maybe you can just sort of like slide into that part of the conversation now, Marina, about say in how, although we touched on that before about different cultural differences, but maybe some of the nuances of that you've encountered.
Yes, I'd like to. Yes, I'd like to. I will give you an example. My husband works in a company, in an international company, and they have branches all around the world. And recently, they had issues with their South American office workers, and it has been a year that I heard complaints from him saying, look, we don't understand each other at all on business level. These people are so different. They approach work differently. They have different routine, different timing. They're always late. They are, they always, they need 3 coffees a day. They're just leaving for a coffee. And how is this possible? And he was just furious. And then said, look, I need to have a session with you. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. Because I saw how frustrating it was getting to him to work with them, because he actually was he had his expectations, which is Western culture, business etiquette, very result driven, very goal focused.
Yeah.
it's American way, it's Australian, it's becoming an Australian way as well. So it is Western culture, business etiquette. It is very result driven, fast paced, work. But in South America, things are different. And to be successful in work, you actually need to understand the background of these people, of how they work. So what we've done a session and understood a little bit of the business etiquette differences. And we worked out that South American people, by their nature and by their culture, they absolutely need breaks. Their question of time is very relative. For them to be late up to 15 minutes doesn't mean anything. So you need to count with this when you work with this type of countries. You need to be more personal with these people as a leader. So you can't, in Australia, for example, it is considered that you need to stay very cold and extremely professional with your colleagues. Whether in South America, it is a must, and it's considered actually a good behavior to ask them, how is your family doing? Oh, how are you? How was your daughter's birthday? Or how was your wife's, trip or something like that? So you need to be involved a little bit, on a deeper level on human side with this, with them. And, as well as growing, understanding their personal relationship inside the office, that for them, their family and personal priorities sometimes are a very high, they're on a high level. Whether for Western culture, your priorities, they are considered in a very small part. When you're working, you have to be focused on business. You need to be extremely professional, sharp, straight to the point. Whether in South America, it is okay to talk for a longer time and get to the point in the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
All these things, they are very different. They can be hard to manage, but if you are about to work with these countries, you need to understand them and expect this to happen.
But it's super helpful, isn't it? I mean, just even, if you, like, either after the fact, like you were saying with your husband, knowing then after the fact these things, it might still be frustrating, but it's then hugely helpful then to know, like, the rules of the game, right? Like, it's like going, because I play squash and I'm always talking about squash, blah, 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 always talking about squash, carrying on about it. And so, yeah, it'd be like someone going in and going, there you go, up in the squash court, there's a racket, go for your life. Everyone will be like, what do I do? People feel anxious. People will be like, so how do I win? Doesn't matter. Just do whatever you want.
Do whatever.
Do whatever you want. Okay, you hit me in the back of the head. Is that right? Hey, don't do that. You didn't tell me. Or like, you have to call a lap. All these sort of like things. I mean, people do, like, I guess we sort of touched on at the start. People do intuitively know what is correct and right and appropriate, but it's so much more helpful to have it laid out for you and go, this is the correct way. This is like a good way to do it, and then, and not looking at it through the lens of you're being told what to do, because that's like I've always, there is obviously a difference between telling somebody what to do and having etiquette rules. Like, they're not really the same thing, but I feel like they're often conflated into the same thing, that people are like, I'm being told what to do. So no, it's just stuff that's actually going to help you get along in life. It's like, and you see those things in, in religious practices, religious ceremonies, in all parts of life, where people are going, this is a nice way to do it. There's also, I feel like things like etiquette and processes, they become then a part of like a way for people to bond, because when they don't have to worry about not knowing like certain things, they can get on with the good stuff, if that makes sense.
Yes.
it sort of frees you up, like you sort of said before. It frees you up to enjoy the other aspects because you don't have to worry about these unknowns.
It gives you certain way of freedom, right? A certain way of freedom. You come to the office or you come for a job interview and you just feel confident. You know what to say, you know what to answer, you know which questions you will be put, you know how to speak, you know how to have a proper self-presentation. You don't need to be worried, oh my God, am I saying the right thing? Am I dressed in a proper way? So you just understand these rules, and that's it. You're not worried. You just focus on result. You understand how, okay. And above all, with that, we didn't mention, it's also about knowing your self-worth, because the more skills you acquire, the more learnings you have, the more knowledge of such a, let's say, niche field as etiquette, business etiquette rules, as an expert, you will always get a higher price or higher ticket as a coach, let's say. So if you come for an interview and your interviewer, your employee, your future employee, let's say it's an important CEO, he understands your value, he tests you, he puts you under uncomfortable situation, and he understands how you react. He understands that you have the knowledge of skills, you know how to present yourself. And therefore, when you ask for money, he understands why do you ask for this money. If you come there and you ask for a certain amount and you say, oh, because I'm so great, because look at my CV, my CV means, it's just fantastic. But then if your CV does not really reflect on who you are and how you behave, the person is not the employee is not hiring a CV, they're hiring a person. And at the end of the day, you need to present yourself as a polished professional, knowledgeable, personal, competent professional. And that's what it is about. Nowadays, I meet a lot of people who come to me and they say, Marina, I'm this and I'm that, and I know how to do so many different things. But I say that's fine, but let's have a look at your image. Okay. Let's look at how you're dressed up. Let's look at your body language. Let's look at your self-presentation skills. Can you actually talk about what you do? Can you present yourself? And then, then we go, well, kind of. Even that answer of kind of already tells me.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope, isn't it? Yeah. I mean,
yes,
it does, just hearing you talk about it like that too, it relates very strongly to, for me anyway, to the idea of, actions speak louder than words, like having etiquette, having processes, and then it kind of relating to, like you were saying, understanding yourself better through the process of having, a framework and going, and you might be, not, terrible at something. It could be better. You could be a little bit more polished, or or not even necessarily more polished, might be more appropriate to which might be more helpful, whatever position you're doing, and then that ultimately, in my mind anyway, that relates very strongly to how confident you are, because if you know A, B, C, D, E, you know that, and you go, yep, that's all done. I feel confident in this. I know that generally works. Now I don't have all those little niggling things like eating away at me, by going, this is, it's that sort of undermining self-confidence, which it might not necessarily be a big deal, but they're really almost like, they're small things, but it's often those little things. It's like, there's this really good saying, by Muhammad Ali, or I think he said this anyway. It's like, it's not the mountain, that you're climbing. It's, the stone in your shoe or something. It's like the little thing that's just
correct,
getting away. It's like, and it's there, but it, So say, for example, I was sort of interested to hear your thoughts on this. Say if there's a industry, like an application of what you do to a not normal industry that you would usually work with, like as to like how, if you would approach it in like exactly the same sort of way, but with obvious differences, like say somebody who's, a tradesperson who's dealing with who would, arguably might go, what's the use, because I'm having these conversations with other blokes and we're talking about this all the time and I don't really need that. Like what would be, from everything we've been talking about etiquette and, personal charisma, what would you say to them? Or what would you, if like standing in front and some bloke's going, oh, Marina, like it's not for me. I don't see any value. Isn't that like for ladies? Isn't that like a ladies thing? What would you say?
Look, it's a hard, it's a hard one. I don't believe in convincing someone. I truly believe that people are learning by action and by results. So they see others do this and they see the result they might have.
Yeah.
And they watch some people, they watch others and it might take them 1 year or 2 years and they say, oh, listen, like, I've seen him doing this and I quite like the results. And they get to the point in their life when they say, look, I might feel ready for this training now, or I might feel that my employees need it because he feels that something is not right in the company. And sometimes people never get to this point. But what I feel that we need to do in my perspective, is that I need to talk about it. I need to present it to people. I need to deliver the value of it, and I need to deliver the visible results as well. Because the sooner we start introducing this to our young professionals, to small companies where people are just starting their building, or the better results, the better customer service, the better revenue this company will have. I can guarantee you, because what is happening is that I see people investing money into their, let's say offices, in acquiring new people, in growth, in investing, let's say buying furniture, but then they don't invest into their people, into a training of their people, of their employees. Therefore, they always change people, because absolutely a person who is not well trained cannot deliver a good service. That's why there is a lot of bad outcome, and there is a lot of, especially we notice it nowadays, and probably you've noticed that trend, that it's really hard to find good professionals. I see this everywhere. People ask me, Marina, do you know people, good professional in this or that area, starting from waiters, finishing to engineers. There are no good professionals. But also there is a big fault of the companies, of the employees, because we do not train our staff and our people properly. If you do not train your people, it's always difficult to have a good outcome for your clients and for you as an employee. So I believe that it's all about communicating, educating people, growing their values, growing their vision, their discipline in learning, and make them understand that learning is something that no one will ever take away from them. This will remain to them now, and it will remain when they will be 70, when they're 80, and they will be such a wonderful example to their grandchildren, to their children, before the grandchildren, obviously. And that's all that matters in the end of the day. We want to be, as we grow, we want to be good example to our dear ones.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, isn't it? I mean, it really is I find it very interesting hearing you talk about it as then a coach for people in business too, because they hear a lot of, I guess, similar conversations with other coaches and people who are helping businesses that talk, speak to businesses a lot about their culture and how important that is, their business culture. But I don't really, I may have just missed this part of the conversation, but it's actually happening out there. But like, people then talking about the culture, but not talking about that etiquette aspect and politeness and things. I mean, they probably do talk about it in a different way, but I think the idea of etiquette is a really important, fundamental, way for people to have mutual respect.
Correct.
And I always remember this thing that really stuck in my mind, probably because it was really important to me at the time. I got like asked to be a instructor in our club, and I was like, oh wow, and I was like really excited about that. And people going, and my head instructor talking about the importance of respect, of especially now in being in this role, and saying that once respect itself is lost, it's almost impossible to regain.
Oh,
so like once you have it and you lose it, and that's always really stuck in my mind as a very important point. And then intuitively, I guess, knowing that that's true too. Like people hope, they go, do something like, it'll be all right, and then of course it might seem all right, but that person never has, it's never quite the same. And
not the same. You're right.
And people aren't going to share it. Yeah. And they're not going to share it with you. They're not going to go, hey, listen. They're not going to like open up most of the time and go, hey, I don't really respect you anymore. No one's ever going to probably say that to you, but they're going to be thinking it. And it's this, and for me, it's like this foundational thing that I don't feel is, and this is where it's interesting, because then it's not a cultural, as in Australian culture, I don't think for the most part, I think, obviously in groups, as much of an important fundamental underlying thing as it is in other particular cultures, because people are brought up with it more in their family. So by the time they get into business or they get a job, it's already there. They don't have to like learn it and go, hey, make sure you've got good etiquette. Like they already know about it. It's normal.
Well, yeah, it's a part of in some countries, it's a part of school program, and, or it's unfortunately, nowadays it's a part of more private schools, not all of them, but there is in some private schools, especially for girls, you can find this programs, and it's fantastic. But what really makes me sad is that it needs to be a part of a private school program, and it's quite inaccessible to many people still. And our state schools are not emphasizing on such an important and core values as politeness, respect, civility, help, core values, core morals. And this is something that I believe still, so we will go back to. But, I wanted to go back to the fact that you said that people are, that they don't think it's important. And, I don't blame this part, because I was growing up before I understood and I got deep into studying manners and etiquette. I thought that etiquette and rules, and in fact, when I was first introduced to this, I was thinking that it's extremely boring. Boring because how this word etiquette was connected to the aristocracy and only the privileged ones. this boring. It is unfair. It is really, really unfair because we all deserve, we all deserve that great behavior. It's not only, it should not be absolutely. I respect traditions. I respect British royal family, and it's wonderful that they could carry this into the society. But nowadays, we believe etiquette has evolved, and we need to make it more accessible. With completely different times. People, in fact, because such a basic and core values were lost, as we said, we mentioned already the politeness and kindness. So we need to start from the core values and to grow that inner elegance, inner kindness in people. Teach this before we will start being super strict with with different rules. But those core values, as you mentioned, like respect, like you when you were an instructor. So this type of things, nobody can teach you them nowadays. And that's why a big part of etiquette, it is actually those core values. And it's amazing when you know how to grow them in business within your community of people, your employees, and build this as a foundation of your group, of any sort of group.
Yeah, I think it's very strongly linked to having a group around you to support and like a structure, because any group that I can think of, like say our Taekwondo club, networking groups, that you and I have been to, all of those groups, and then say other, social groups that people might be a part of. If it's like people who are really into, craft or things, and they're doing an activity, any group where there's some people and there's like some hierarchy, even if it's not like super obvious, but there's some hierarchy in all those groups. They've got one thing in common, which is that people are always just, either because they're there to learn and therefore there's people in the same mindset and they're helping each other anyway. So that those actions foster the right etiquette and the right things. And then you just have to have the, other etiquette and rules in place to support what's already happening, which I think is probably true. But all of them have that same thing in common. There's a system where people at the lower level are helped by these people, and those people are helped by these people, and they're helped by these people. They all have that in common, and everyone has an underlying willingness to do it. They're not being made to do it. And they're not doing it because the rules say they have to do it, but the rules are there to go, here's some helping guidelines, but people are very happy to do it. And they're like happy to go, yeah, listen, like, and when it comes to business, like the groups that we've been to, everyone's like almost without exception, like everyone's very willing to go, yeah, like how can I help you? And they're not putting it on. Like everyone's there going, how can I help you? Because they know what goes around comes around, and they know that they were in that position when they first started their business, and they had some person or persons go, here's a helping hand, here's this or that, or they give them a lead or whatever, or they're just being a friend. And that, that it gets back to like people, I think generally people are nice and people want to help. And then if you've got good etiquette and processes in place that encourages that, it just gives it like a good, framework.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not like, and then that's where I feel like a misconception about it is, has that negative effect where people go, well, I don't need that. I don't need to be told what to do, but it's not. It's just a, helpful guiding light, so to speak. That's what I think anyway. But you went to, so can you tell us a little bit about the formal education that you did too in so etiquette, protocol, and social etiquette? Where did you actually do those, Marina, and what did they kind of involve broadly?
Yes. Oh, so it's been a long journey. I started It's been a long journey. So I studied at the I studied at my university international affairs and diplomacy in Prague. And a part of protocols was involved in my university studies. But that was only a very small part at the beginning of my journey. After this, I was involved in luxury retail. I worked as a luxury broker of luxury goods, precious stones, jewelry pieces. And this was the beginning of my journey towards etiquette. I had to undertake a lot of self-development educational etiquette classes as I worked with a very high-end clientele. People who trusted me, their wealth, their money into investing into precious stones. And we're talking about really big amounts. And what it meant, it meant growing relationship, strong, long-lasting relationship with these people. And I could not honestly do it without having the skill of set. So first I had to undertake an etiquette course in France. That was my first short course for myself. And I really loved it. And then I just parked it, and I continued amplifying everything I learned on my daily basis at work. And then once, when I moved to Australia 5 years ago, COVID came. And I believe that COVID was, for many of us, was, like a big, like it pushed people to do a change in life in many ways. For some,
absolutely, yeah.
Change, professional, we all lived it, we know it. So I was one of them, and I said I'd love to do something that truly inspires me, something useful, something that would be my true mission. And one of the things that I love, it's elegance, it's etiquette, it is sharing my knowledge, everything that I learned, because I had such a wide and long experience in this area. So I took. Now, how many courses I took? Oh, so many of them. I worked with an American school of protocol in Palm Beach by a famous mentor, Jacqueline Whitmore. She worked on CNN, and a lot of American television and shows, and she's an amazing lady. She guided me through my initial journey of becoming an etiquette trainer. Then I studied in Russia. It was a social etiquette program, which was in-depth 6 months program of everyday studies on social etiquette. That was fantastic. Then I have done a short course in Washington School of Etiquette, and my last educational dream and dream come true was a protocol school of London, which gave me a certification of becoming a cross-cultural specialist. So I specialized, I extended my knowledge as a business etiquette trainer, but also as cross-cultural specialist. And I went to London to finish the school. And yes, it was one of the most amazing experiences. And I believe that England is a country is really a country where you absolutely, if you study etiquette, it must be, some part of the education must be related to England.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Like I find this area being like essentially like a business coach of sorts. Like your niche is something that I've sort of always, I guess like a lot of people probably listening, they know it's out there and they know it's a thing, but I've never, encountered anyone who's actually in that area. And, talking to you more, the realization of like, I'm probably like in a good position because my idea about etiquette is maybe a bit different to some other people. Like the importance and even the word like has different meaning for me, but I could really see like, especially like all the different things we've talked about, but especially that, in our modern world, the, cross-cultural sort of thing is incredibly important. Like, and it's increasingly important because, most Western societies are very multicultural. and more so. Like it's becoming more that way. There's more, in particular areas in Brisbane, there's different sort of cultures, more people in business that are a bit more dominant. So knowing those things, I guess, do you find that most people you talk to initially don't see like the real importance of it, or they already go, yeah, I know it's important and I want to know more? Or is it like somewhere in between, like when they actually come to you first and go, hey Marina, like I'm interested in this, what stage are most of those people at in terms of how important it is to them already?
The people who are in business and who work internationally, or they outsource employees from outside. There are a lot of outsourcing companies, and we meet them more and more often. They understand the importance of it because they face difficulties, because they do face a lot of difficulties in miscommunications between Australian offices and external offices. So people who are in business, who work internationally on global arena, and they want to grow, they want to outsource people, they want to become partners internationally with foreign branches, offices. They understand the difference of it. I feel that I met more difficulties in discussing these topics with local companies and people making people understand the value of it locally. And yes, especially in Brisbane.
Yeah, I can see why that would be the case too, because I guess if you just follow like the natural course of things for businesses, people are busy. They've got, their plate is already 100% full. So they're like,
Absolutely. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Soft skills. Why would I need soft skills in my life?
Why do I need to navigate the world with more grace? Things like that. Like, well,
you see
why
how
not?
amazing you are. You always speak like Audrey Hepburn.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, but then it's interesting too, because you could take that to, which you can talk about this too if you want, but like how then these things impact, obviously people's personal brand, but then the brand of their business, which is
absolutely
is for many people intertwined, like their personal brand is intertwined with their business. Therefore, anything that is going to, or anything sort of, what we're talking about, or things that are going to make them stand out more, is closely aligned to marketing, is closely aligned to their brand. And it makes them nicer people too, which is, super important in business, which is all about relationships. So, I mean, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you be thinking about it in one way?
Yes. So, but let's not forget that effective networking contacts, they require a lot of work as well. And you need to manage these contacts. So why do you need 1,000 contacts if you don't know how to work with these contacts? And you don't know how to approach people, how to have an effective communication and good outcome. Because effective networking is also part of etiquette, right? We speak about networking, about communication. And we can market as much as we want, but if we do not deliver, if we don't build the connection and the relationship with people, marketing can work only once for one type sell, but not for building long-lasting relationship with people. You know it from your own probably experience, extensive. You are in this for so many years, and you can tell how important it is to actually personalize your contacts and grow connections and work on your networking and work on your contacts actually.
Yeah, well, like even to this day with our world, like in Roundhouse being very digital still, it's all like design and digital, and even in this world of people connecting and doing things online, as far as I'm concerned, still the top best, way, a thing for businesses to do is like word of mouth, to get out there and actually meet people. And I mean, not at the exclusion of other things, but as a primary thing. And I, also, which is kind of in many ways aligned to what we're talking about, is that I always feel like I'm thinking about, like when we're doing any work for somebody, that I'm always thinking about how can any work that we're going to be doing, especially if it's new, if it's brand new, or refreshing something, how is that going to accurately reflect that person and their business? And then of course other things kind of enter into that, like, is that going to be good for your market? So you've got to like tick other little things, but the primary thing is, you assume, especially if that person's been in business for a long time, they've obviously got a lot of trust in the market. They've still been around. So you can assume a bunch of stuff about that. So therefore, finding out what is going to accurately reflect this important aspect of like a whole heap of things we've been talking about already. Like they've built up trust. They've obviously, had some element of things we've been talking about and what they do with people, word of mouth. They know a lot of people. They've been nice.
Correct.
They've been doing a whole bunch of stuff right. And they might then even have never analyzed it and gone, to someone like yourself and then you might go, well, actually, you're doing this really marvelously. You could improve on this or tweak this a little bit.
Yes. But then there is also another side of the story, and I'll be very quick with that because we didn't have a chance to touch it. And I meet another category of people which are fantastic at what they do, and they're very respectful and polite, and their etiquette is great. But then there is an external image that fails a little bit. And especially in some areas, depends on which profession you're at. If you're a creative like you and, you spend a lot of time at, digital marketing agencies and you work on creative field, then obviously your dress code is a little bit different than it would be of a person who would work in a corporate company and, needs to speak every day, present and, have a team that looks up to him.
Yep.
So we need to be really aware. Or if there is a person who, let's take an example, personal branding specialist or a mindset coach. You need to represent your brand even with your image. I truly believe that, because we are people, whether we want it or we don't want it, we create first impression from first 5 to 10 seconds after meeting someone. And and among the first things we notice is that external image. It's your clothing, that's your hairstyle, that's how is your grooming. So we do notice those little things. And nowadays we live in a world where it's a lot of things promoted that, people say, oh, it's not important, but it's still unconsciously, it still is. We're not judging. Nobody's here to judge, but we do have an impact and we do create impression. And we live here we're social creatures and we all love creating good impression on others.
Yeah.
It is nature.
Things have meaning. Like all things have a meaning.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, when I have to break things down, because I'll often, I'm designing something. So everything's visual and it's exactly like what you're talking about. I mean, it sounds a little bit sort of clinical to break it down like this, but ultimately, me looking at you or looking at somebody else and going, at that snapshot, color, shape, grooming,
correct,
etc., is based on our cultural experiences, expectations, etc. And it's like if I go, okay, I'm going to design a new logo, new brand logo for you and use these colors and you have to tick certain boxes of expectation mixed with creativity, mixed with, something new, something different, and find that sort of magic point where you can do something original, but, in not going so far that you have a negative effect upon the expectations of other people. There's this thing that it's like this, I don't know why this keeps on popping up in my mind, but I remember years ago I was driving around the suburbs, and there's this place, actually I won't say the name because someone might listen and go, oh no, it might be upset. So, but it was a place, that was selling burgers. It was like a burger place, right? It was like fast food burger place. It was not one of the big chains. It was just this smaller place.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I saw this logo, I thought lighting shop. I didn't think burger. And I thought that's obviously my designer brain being critical of the logo and going, oh, I should have been doing this. But I was looking at it, and every time I was saying, oh, and I always felt sort of regret. I didn't even know these people, didn't even go into the place, but to get a burger, because I'd probably go in expecting to see lights in there, but there was no lights. There was just burgers. So, but it was funny because that was like always this really obvious example of wrong, still okay, okay design. It wasn't badly designed. It was wrong. It was
but would you enter to this place to get a burger? Would you go to this?
No, because it didn't feel like, because I know I'm not a psychologist, but what I do know is that there's an element, even if it's small, it can sometimes be enough for people not to act, where something out of the ordinary will sometimes, more for other people than others, equate to a level of mistrust in it. And right. If there's an element of mistrust, then they just won't do it. Like if they're even more flippant, and that is like probably 10, 20, 30 times more online, where they can go and choose things really quickly. They'll go, yes, exactly what's in my mind. I don't even know why. Yes, thank you. Or like, absolutely not. Too dodgy, too expensive, too cheap, too, oh, bless you. And, but I mean, from, your perspective, like you present yourself exactly how I would expect a person with etiquette and personal charisma, to be. So, I mean, that's the right fit. I already obviously know what you do, but then those two things, when those two things match up, it's like, yeah, good. And that equals trust. They're like, well, because it could mean they're lying. It could mean they're not very good at what they do. And people make all sorts of funny assumptions.
Yes. And sometimes it happens unconsciously. We don't know why we don't want to work with the people. It's just, one of those
gut feeling.
This feeling, and there is an explanation behind. And if we analyze each of these feelings and we take that person and we would take an example, I usually do it with clients because they ask me, one of the most common requests that people come to me when they're, for example, coaches or professional, they want to work with high ticket clients. But that therefore, and we start digging into, analyzing their presence. And one of the things when we analyze, and I said, well, would you buy, if you would be that type of client, would you buy your service, your own service? And there they start hesitating because, well, yes, because I have the knowledge. I said, look, but there is a wonderful baker, let's say, or a burger, for example, place, right? Maybe this person makes the most amazing burgers that you would have ever tried. But the chances that you will enter to place to try his burger are so low. A person like you who is traveled, who's been somewhere, who's getting burgers in nice places. But you would never enter this type of place. So he's cutting down on his opportunities by at least 50%. So by increasing that, empowering this image, creating a powerful presence, we are highly increasing our opportunities of work and obviously having a better revenues. So, yes.
Yeah, I think it's like incredibly important. And I think the whole topic then of personal charisma too, like especially given about what we've already discussed, is like way kind of underrated, like as a thing. And I feel like it's because of other things we discussed too, that people go, oh, because people don't identify themselves. They don't go, oh, I'm just not that sort of person, or like where they are on like that, charismatic scale, that just because they're not like Tom Cruise or whatever, that they're not that I guess he's charismatic in his own crazy way, but he's sort of jumping around. I'm not sure if that equals charisma. Maybe it just equals energy, but
well, you like him. Do women like him? A lot of women love him, so probably he must have some part of charisma.
I guess so. I mean, he's very watchable. I mean, I wouldn't go, whoa, I'm a Tom Cruise fan, but I would identify as thinking he's very watchable in films, because that's obviously why he's been very successful. He's good at what he does. And then he jumps around on lounges and stuff. And, and it's like, yeah. And, but like that, but there's different scales on that ladder, right? On that ladder of charisma. Is that true? Like there's different, it doesn't always equal, super handsome, super loud, it's like different flavors of it.
Yes, well, I will give you a secret, because now I cannot reveal all the secrets, right? But if somebody is watching and say, I want to learn how to, but I can tell, I have my system how to work on.
Yeah, don't want to give it all away, Marina.
I'm not going to, but only thing I'll tell you is charismatic person is, yes, they are, and they have energy, they're lively, and they're optimistic. So if you watch a person who will come into the room and that person will be smiling. They will have the positive, optimistic approach. So one of the things, and now you see how to gain it, how to get it and remain authentic and be real, because we don't want that fake smile, right? And come into the room and feel fake and feel extremely uncomfortable, but you know that your coach told you to smile, so you have to smile. This will just simply not look,
everybody knows. Everyone can tell. Yeah.
So how to gain it in a natural way, that's already my formula. That's my secret.
Yes. Well, there we go. That's kind of a good segue, I guess, as we're getting sort of near the end of the podcast, like for people to, to say to people too, who I guess from my perspective, like we're talking about with etiquette, with people thinking about these sort of things more, is like, obviously to get in contact and just learn more. Cause it's a real interesting point of curiosity, I think, probably for people. It's like, because I do really feel like people they know the value of it. I think I'm making all sorts of assumptions here, but I feel people would know, it's important, because obviously people do it, seems to work for them, and there's obviously, some crazy skills that people can learn and that can just help. I think if there was any one thing outside of them going, I don't know if learning more about etiquette is for me, it'd be just for like sort of an increase or just fine tuning confidence and things too, right? Just like helping them be.
It will, yes. One of the primary things that it gives you is a strong confidence. Confidence is number one, because you just feel good. You want to look at yourself in the mirror and feel good, feel confident.
Of course.
When we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't like ourselves for some reason, one reason or another, and sometimes there is no deep reasons for it. And now we're not talking about deep traumas and things, that people go through life. That's not that's not my field. But sometimes even owning those skills, having a good, powerful presence, that what makes you feel so confident.
Yeah, absolutely.
Confidence, yeah.
So Marina, I said at the beginning, I said I was going to ask you for a quote. So I always ask everyone on the podcast if they've got a quote that you like or you feel relates. So what have you got? What have you got for me?
Yes, so I've got for you, I had to divide one quote for women and one for men. Which one
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
I did it because I thought it will be, I thought it will be more relatable. One general quote cannot be, but I would like to be more specific.
Oh, you're so organized, Marina. Love it.
Thank you. Which one would you like me to start with? For ladies first, I believe.
Ladies first, yes, definitely, absolutely.
So I would say, I would citate the Audrey Hepburn famous quote that says, "Elegance is the only beauty that never fades."
Oh, lovely.
Ladies, especially when we are growing, as we're approaching our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, priorities are changing. Our physical beauty is sometimes, going on the second, on the third place is not our priority. But what keeps you truly, what gives you real beauty is your elegance. That remains with you forever. And this is your charm, this is your charisma, and elegance is something that we can learn. So this was for the ladies. And for gentlemen, I have another quote, which is very actual, and I hope gentlemen will hear me. It is, good manners will open the doors that the best education cannot.
Lovely. I like those. I really like those.
Sometimes good manners are as important or more important than the good education.
Yeah.
You see the meaning behind this?
Absolutely. I think for me too, that strongly relates to it pays to be nice. It always pays to be polite.
You can win people with good approach. You can win people with your positive, charismatic, kind, polite, civil attitude.
And why? And I mean, really, why do anything else? Why?
Right.
Why not do that? So I think that's a lovely weight, and it's great having one for ladies and gentlemen. So thank you, Marina. That's very well thought through, and super appropriate. So what's the best way as well? We'll have a link on the podcast to your website. But what's the best way for people to find out about you online? Where do they go? How they learn?
It's on my LinkedIn profile and on my website. And they can book in. At the moment, I'm doing a 15-minute discovery call. So still have some availability. So they're free to book in a 15-minute discovery call to go through my workshops, my individual programs. I have a lot of interesting topics we could learn.
I bet. Yeah. And that's the charismaacademy.com, right?
The charismaacademy.com.
Yeah. We'll have the link there too. So any parting notes that you would like to share with everyone?
Well, no, I would like just to thank you to say that I'm delighted to be here and that you have a very charismatic smile, Saul. So thank you for that, for giving me your smile.
Marina, that's very nice of you. Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me and supporting my small business. It is important to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, that's the reason. Two main reasons why I do the podcast is just to help. Genuinely, I know people might be listening and going, yeah, whatever, but it's true. I actually just like helping other people out because I've been helped, and I also like hearing other people's stories. I think it's really interesting. And if can help other people out, and podcasts, I'm a podcast fan too, so I like listening to people, being a fly on the wall and listening too. So if I can do something similar, well, that's great. But thank you.
You're doing an amazing job. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's really fun. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I hope people listening get a lot out of it. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you again soon. And say goodbye to everyone, Marina.
Goodbye. Thank you for listening. I hope you will find it useful.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Grow Your Business. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time here at the Grow Your Business podcast.